digitaljamsessions.com.
Hello and welcome to this Digital Jam session. Today we're coming at you live from the virtual reality show here in the Business Design Centre in central London. We're joined by an array of talent from the games industry, including, I'm going to start from the end, Phil from Big Point, we have Cliff from Lewis Silken, we have Jess from Unreal, we have Rob Morgan who's from Playlines, and we also have with us Rahul from ESL. Welcome everybody. Hello. That's such a loud group of you. So today, given that we have so much talent and experience and decades of experience in some cases, if you're looking at me, within this industry, I thought we would talk about some of our tips, advice, and just general our war stories for those who are thinking about getting into the industry. Now, I'm going to start with Jess on the basis of Jess is the most recent entrant into the industry out of all of us. Jess is no? Technically, Rahul?
Started about a year ago.
He beats me. I'm not the noob.
So Jess is now relieved because she's not the noob. So Rahul, on the basis of you being the newest person
Here we go.
to enter our industry, I'm curious to understand from you whether or not you felt that there was a bit of a challenge in getting into this industry, or how did you stumble into this industry?
So I think there's always a challenge because I started as a huge video games fan, and I've always as a kid thought, I want to get into the games industry, like that would be the dream job, but I never really knew how to do it. I was never a programmer, I'm not an artist, I'm not a writer, so I was always very confused like how I would go about doing this. And the way I actually stumbled into it, so there's a convention that happens in London called EGX Rezzed.
Oh, yes.
And UKI, so that's a UK International
Interactive Entertainment.
Yep, that's the one. And they hold these career sessions where essentially they just give tips and advice of how to get into the career, into the industry. And one of the talks was given by the managing director of ESL, and Mr. James Dean, who, after he gave the talk, he's talked about the business and legal opportunities, like work in the legal industry. Yep. So I studied law at university, and I thought, that makes more sense. Like, I'm not a programmer, but I can do business and legal stuff within the games industry. Yeah. And that's how I stumbled into it. I had a chat with him after he gave his talk, went back and forth a bit, and now I essentially work in the legal team at ESL UK.
Wow, so we can actually say that EGX Rezzed actually worked.
Yes, it did. And I do sing the praises of that entire part of the convention, the careers bar, because I saw a lot of school kids wandering around, and now I've seen schools do trips to EGX Rezzed for that specific thing. And I wish when I was a kid I had the same thing, or even a teenager, because without events like that and without sort of motivating myself to research and learn about them on my own, I would never have found it, and I probably never would have got into it. So I guess one of my top tips is just put yourself out there and go to events, and there's a lot out there in the games industry, more than just a programmer, animator, artist, anyway. Okay, so first of all, before I ask you, Jess, about your story, I just want to clarify and double check for the people sat around these sofas right now, who out of all of us actually is a coder or a developer, actually writes code?
Kind of.
That's a stretch. Come on.
Well,
It's not in your job description.
but I just still do it. I write tutorials and stuff on how to do it. Does that not count? I make projects in my spare time.
You didn't ask if it was in our job description.
Okay, what I'm trying to clarify is actually who in this particular conversation is actually working in the industry as a coder or a developer, because one of the things that Rahul mentioned was this idea that he wasn't really aware how he could get involved as somebody who'd studied law, and the fact that there are so many jobs that are involved in this industry that have nothing to do with coding, and the fact that actually a lot of the people around the sofa are not necessarily in this industry because they code and they're a developer.
I have to know. I'm here because I was in production first, and I couldn't do my job if I didn't understand production and come from that background. So,
okay.
Yeah, I would still class myself as a developer.
Okay.
Sorry.
You will be the odd one out.
Developer.
Always one.
It's always one. You are our token developer, so why don't you tell us, as our token developer, your story of how you got into this industry?
Oh God, it's a long one.
Because you're working for Unreal. I mean, for some people, that's a big deal. I mean, you step straight into a big company, so you know.
So actually, I worked somewhere else before I got there. But basically, my kind of story starts second year at university. So in Scotland, we do 4 years. I come from a Scottish background. I did a little project called We Paper Planes, showcased that at Dare Proto Play. That inspired me to get involved in Dare to Be Digital the following year. I ended up going and studying abroad for a semester where I worked as a lead animator across a program called Uchroma in Copenhagen. While I was out there, I learned lots of skills, got invited to join a Dare to Be Digital team. We pitched it, we got part of Dare. Came back, literally flew back at 1 a.m. in the morning to start Dare at 9 a.m. the next day. It was crazy. Did Dare over the summer and made a little tablet game called Seek, Find Your Friends. Now from that, we would, basically at this point, Unreal had just gone subscription and we used Unreal to make a mobile game. One of the first people to do that. So we submitted to go and showcase with them at a competition at Eurogamer, which was going to be in the September. And surprisingly, we actually won it and we got to go do it. Group of students going down to showcase with Unreal with our little tablet game. Yeah. We do that. We do that for the entire week, have an amazing time. Fast forward a bit further forward, I get a scholarship to go out as an IGDA Intel scholar out to GDC. Go out to GDC and see a giant picture of our game, Seek, on the side of Unreal Engine's booth. Had no idea. So I go up and say thank you, end up eating cookies and brownies with them for about 6 hours on the tops of their booth, get about 7 people's life story, meet so much of the company. And while I'm there, one of the guys comes up and goes, "You're about ready for releasing your game." And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, hang on. What are you doing at 5? Nothing? Great, you're pitching to Apple." I'm like, oh. So I pitched to the worldwide developer relations on an Android tablet because I don't own anything iOS.
Okay, not awkward at all.
He took it so well. So well. It was amazing. After that, we released the game, did really well, and it was great. But I kept in contact with all the people from kind of Unreal. I did my honors project, which is the final thing you do at uni, in Unreal Engine, kept in contact, showed them my work kind of thing. Alongside all of this, I've met some people from 4J Studios. So when I graduate, I walked straight into a job at 4J, so I used to work on Minecraft, the console edition of it. So I worked there for 6 months, and then Epic approaches me and go, "Hey, you've been recommended by somebody in the company for this job we have open. Are you interested?" And I went, "Yeah, actually, yeah." It meant I could travel around and stuff. I did love my work. I mean, Christ, it's Minecraft. I got to work with Nintendo. It was amazing. The team there are fantastic. I love them all. But I also want to travel a little bit and kind of see a little bit of the world, which is what I could do with Epic. So I joined them, and it's just been, oh my goodness, from there.
Okay, so I'm going to take it back. I'm not going to be calling you our token developer anymore. You are our superstar developer, just so we're clear. But also, just as a personal sharing, I'm going to say this just to make you feel better about the fact that you pitched on an Android device to Apple, because I had a kind of weird-ish moment like this when I was in a meeting with the head of franchise for Marvel.
Oh,
and
yes!
Jess knows because she has seen my laptop.
I've seen your laptop.
And she knows that on the top of my laptop there's a decal for DC. So, for the entire DC lineup. And so, if anybody knows anything about comics, they'll know that maybe that might have not been the most, best etiquette of the thing to do. But, we all have these moments. So I just wanted you to feel better about the fact that, others have done just as silly things as you have.
Well,
so,
I don't own anything. I didn't own anything Apple.
Yep.
When he said 5 o'clock, that was only 3 hours away. I didn't have a pitch or anything sorted. I did have a copy of the game, so I was semi-prepared, but that was,
This is an important lesson to always be prepared.
It is, absolutely. And always carry multiple versions of every type of phone with you at all times is, I think, the takeaway here. But he took it well, and I think that's the thing. I think people in the industry also make allowances because they know it happens
Good
so quickly.
content speaks for itself,
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm going to go with Rob next. Tell us your story.
Okay, so I'm a game writer, and it can often seem from the outside like a very kind of mysterious and baffling process to become a game writer, which is no coincidence, because it is a mysterious and baffling process to become a game writer, because it is, I often say it's like one of the least professionalized parts of the industry, in the sense not that you don't have to be professional, because you have to be really professional, but just that there is no established career ladder in the strictest sense. A game writer is going to be doing a different kind of job on every different game that they work on. It means different things to different studios and different companies that you work for, which is why you get all of these sub-names or sub-job titles developed, like narrative designer, which has a strict definition in some studios and no definition at all in other studios. And it's also mysterious. I get asked a lot, how do you become a game writer? Because it's something that is a dream for lots of people. But there is a current generation of people who came up to do that job through being 2D artists, or being coders, or being marketers, or being designers, and they're not going to die off for a while. So there are a lot of games that will continue to be written by the same generation who were already in the industry and they became writers. The good news is that Now, the advice I can give other people is to go off and make a game themselves using a free format like Twine. Or if you're just in text, then something like Twine or Ink, or if you're capable of doing something in Unreal or something more hardcore, even better. My personal story is kind of stuck in between these two generations because I did literature at uni, and then I knew I wanted to work in technology, but I didn't know what. I ended up working for a tiny media company where we just hustled around for arts money, and we ended up doing a consultancy for Sony at London Studio when they were just starting to work on an augmented reality project that looked like it was going to need some writing, and they looked like they might need some storytellers. So I was a junior dog's body consultant fetching coffee. And effectively, I already knew I wanted to be a writer. When that consultation ended and I was just leaving Sony, I wrote up a big kind of portfolio of demo text for people to use instead of just using lorem ipsum. Guys, if you're just making a demo, why don't you just use some of this text? And it was not a very subtle move. But I printed off about 20 copies of this thing, wrote it, spent a week writing it and perfecting it, wrote it as well as I could, made it as useful as I could and as clearly formatted as I could, printed it off and just left it on people's desks and then left. And assumed I'd hear no more about it. And 6 months later, they realized they needed someone who could spell, so they hired me as an editor.
Spell?
Yeah, they hired me as an editor, and then I worked my way up from there to lead, and then I was lead on the sequel. That was Book of Spells and Book of Potions, the augmented reality Wonder Book title, which was involved in me collaborating to write it with J.K. Rowling, which was really cool. And then I started moving into and specializing in VR. But even with that, kind of being a contract game writer is still quite an unstable life. And the thing that I was particularly passionate about was AR and AR drama. And I realized no one was going to hire me to do this thing that felt like it was my idea that I really loved and that I wanted to pursue. So I decided I had to hire myself, and that's when I got into the even scarier process of founding a studio. So yeah, that was that journey. But if anything, the lesson is that a lot of luck is involved, but then you have to really double down and take best advantage of those opportunities when they come up.
I think there's also a little lesson there in just, taking the initiative. Like, you wrote this thing, you left it on people's desk, you just taking the initiative and doing something.
Yeah, if you can't see a way forward, then just, imagine one and give it a go, and then don't be too downhearted when it doesn't work, which it probably won't, because that story just doesn't include the many things I tried that didn't work. And this still may not, you never know.
Well, so here's the thing, is that we have one of these degrees of connection going on here, because you mentioned J.K. Rowling, and of course we have another person here in the group who has a vague connection to the world of J.K. Rowling and maybe Mr. Harry Potter. Why don't you, Cliff, explain to us your story?
Well, my story, I was born at... No.
We could be here a while.
No, you really don't have enough time. So my name's Cliff. I qualified as a lawyer far too many years ago. And in many ways, the world of sort of convergence and transmedia is how I sort of ended up going backwards into the world. I started for many years in the world of music and multi-platform, including my time at Time Warner, where I had to deal with lots of cross-platform opportunities, including the likes of The Boy Wizard and others. Then I was in broadcast, and then I decided to get into a scary and crazy new technology by the name of mobile. And for many years, my two biggest clients were Nokia and BlackBerry. Ask your parents. And but actually, I was also involved in the very first days of the App Store and seeing a whole new ecosystem. And I remember very clearly when they say, well, why does a mobile phone company need a music lawyer? Why do they need a audiovisual rights lawyer? The idea that these things would be on a phone. And then very quickly, the idea that this would become a principal device for gaming was the stuff of science fiction, and got involved in the earliest days of titles like Cut the Rope. And then there was a small games company by the name of Rovio that I've worked for years and years as a client. And then that world has gone into the world of all the things that spin off of that, which is data privacy and merchandising and transmedia storytelling. And now, of course, it's going in, having gone through the vlogosphere with many of these artists, taking people's identities, storytelling and brands in a multi-platform world. So it's almost by ensuring you don't stand still, really interesting things catch up with you, and not being closed to the opportunities. For as long as one says, okay, I am working in the world of X, what would that have to do with me? We've seen here today at the virtual reality show people interested in everything from neurosurgery to neutron bombs, to people who are looking for opportunities for the future of design, future of environmental, and the future of health, wealth, technology, fintech. in many ways, the whole world of gaming and gamification is coming to everyone. And my top tip is just be open to be caught.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Cliff. Now, Phil, this leaves you as our last man standing. Would you care to share with us your story, your magical journey into the games industry?
So, my name's Phil Harris, and I killed my first person at 8 years old. It was their own fault, you know. They walked under that green slime, and as the games master, I had to make that decision. But that decision actually fundamentally affected me for the rest of my life.
It led you to kill your second person.
Oh, and it led me to kill many other people. I'm one of those germs. Yes, death is coming. I role-played for years, and I didn't really think very much of what I was doing. I didn't think that I was much of a storyteller or a narrative designer. I just sort of flirted with it. And at the 10th anniversary of a game that I was doing, a friend said, we should have a party. And to cut a long story short, 97 people turned up to that party, including people flying in internationally, which for a role-playing game is pretty good. And I was like, maybe I can do this. And then 3 hours into that party, everybody was still talking about that. But it wasn't just the people who were the players. It was people who were flatmates of those players and had been given the story day in, day out as they'd engaged in it, and they actually knew the story. So it had sort of become sort of legend in some strange way. 2008, I decided to fire into the games journalism field through Square Go, a magazine I got death threats for my second review of Resistance 2, where I gave it 4 out of 10. And then... Yeah, it's okay. It's all coming up. It's good. It's great in the games industry, hey. And then 2 months later, I was editor-in-chief of that same online magazine, one which Dave Cook had been editor-in-chief before me and done an amazing job. And I took the readership from about 2,000 people a month to 33,000. And my editorials were a thing of note, especially through Google Analytics in Silicon Valley and those type of environments. There was a huge spike on Monday when I did my editorial, which was quite nice because I was never non-controversial, shall we say. Spent a lot of time doing that. After that, I was invited to a couple of social media jobs in the games industry, working for Turn Digital, Simon Meek, Ace Guy, and that was really, really good fun. I left them after 3 months. I'd pretty much I'd SEO'd the hell out of digital adaptations, and you can still see the remnants of that, especially in images. Nobody tags images. You should be tagging images, people. Anyway, and from there, I worked with Blazing Griffin, worked on Distant Star Revenant Fleet, left them and joined Celtic Heroes while in the middle of that, doing a game where you shot hamsters.
Where did you shoot them?
No, you were shooting at the hamsters. It's called Pet Roulette, and it's free on the App Store. Not on the App Store, it's free on Google Play, because the App Store wouldn't accept it, because they said they wouldn't do a Russian roulette type game, even though they had a Russian roulette type game on the App Store, which is much more realistic. But I'm not going to go any further on that. Anyway.
And you're now at?
Yes, sorry. I'll get there. So worked for one for mobile, Celtic Heroes, and that was really good. Really, really proved my point with story, and some of the statistics there showed it. But they gave me a chance to read all the statistics and take copies of them, which became part of my CV and pushed me on to Big Point, where I'm senior narrative designer. And one of the senior narrative designers, where when I came in, I don't think the job was defined. It was just a writer. But goddamn, they know what a narrative designer is there now, and that's what we do. And a narrative designer definitely deals with all the art design and the coding teams to make sure that we get the story and the world developed in the way that it should be. And as I said earlier, we're sort of probably the anti-producers until the producers say, no, you can't have the money for that.
Okay, wonderful. Well, bearing in mind the Big Tannoy has just told us that the show has now closed, I will ask you very briefly what your one bit of advice would be for somebody who is about to embark upon their journey into the games industry. What would be the thing you would say, or the VR industry for that matter? Jess has just shoved her hand up really, really quickly. Jess, say it.
Have courage, be kind, and work hard.
Okay, so if you like Disney, you'll know what that means. Anybody else?
And if you work for Google, you that's a joke.
For me, it's just like, do what I did, drive a car into the rear fire doors of the games industry, get in, find a seat, sit down. It'll be really, really hard for them to get you out.
Anybody else?
Finish it. It doesn't matter what it is, and you've almost certainly started something. Just finish it. Finished is infinitely better than perfect. Don't wait for it to be perfect. Get it finished and get people to look at it. Put it on itch. It doesn't matter how bad it is. If you have a finished game to your name, you can put that on the internet and you can sell it for money, which even if it is entirely theoretical money, that means you are a game maker. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you have every right to walk up to any company in the world and see if they want to hire you.
Okay, good advice. As always, we like to give our listeners a way to be able to find out a little bit more about what you're up to. We ask you to do that by sharing with us your social media handle of choice. And I'm going to start on this end.
I'm Rob, and mine is About This Later, as in we'll talk about this later.
On Twitter?
Yeah, on Twitter.
So my Twitter handle is Rahula Hoop. So I'll just spell that out for you guys. So it's RAHULA and then hoop with an underscore at the end, because somebody stole regular Rahula Hoop. I've looked at his profile. He has like 10 tweets. It's actually very frustrating. But yeah, so Rahula Hoop underscore.
Okay.
I'm on Twitter at Philip G. Harris, Philip with one L.
This is Cliff. I'm on Twitter at FFLIC.
I'm Jess, and I'm on Twitter at Jess Hyder, spelled Hider.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And thank you for listening. If you enjoy this content, don't forget to subscribe and review, and follow us on Twitter at Digital Jam Ltd.
digitaljamsessions.com